So we solved on Monday, Tuesday by graphing so you guys could see the x-intercepts, okay? Because when we're solving a quadratic function, we're looking for where it crosses the x-axis, the x-intercepts. We need to know that. I want you guys to be able to answer that whenever I ask the question, okay? But sometimes when we graph, it's kind of hard, okay? When we're graphing, you can't always see like a fraction or a decimal, okay? So graphing isn't always the best way to solve a quadratic. So we're going to show you how to do it by factoring. There's going to be multiple ways we learn how to solve, okay? So just to review, we want to write this down over here. When you solve a quadratic function, you are looking for the x-intercepts. Okay, that's always what we're looking for. Okay. Y equals 0 or f of x equals 0 when a point is on the x-axis. Okay, so that's the key there. You need to know that y is going to be 0 when we're on the x-axis, or f of x equals 0. You know that y and f of x are the same thing, right? They're just in two different ways to write it. Okay, when we're solving, we have a lot of vocabulary that we use for solving. Okay, so I want to make sure you know all the vocabulary that they could possibly ask you to do. They could ask you to solve. Okay, if they ask you to solve, that means find the x-intercepts, okay? They could ask you to find the roots. Okay. They could ask you to find the x-intercepts. They could ask you to find the zeros. Okay, those all mean the same thing. Okay, so don't get confused by all that, even though it is confusing, I get that. They all mean the same thing. Just solve the quadratic equation. That's all it's asking you to do. Okay. In this book right now, they're sticking with the word solve, so that's nice, but later on they might introduce these other words, and I want you to know this. These other words might also appear on the SAT, the PSAT, your SBAC testing as you go on. No, they're all the same thing though, okay? So in this, we have solve each equation. It's already factored for us, which is nice. It says to use the zero product property. Do you guys know what product means? What does product mean? Yep. Very good. That's exactly what it is. The definition of product is the answer to a multiplication. It means I'm multiplying. Okay, and when I multiply by 0, what does that mean? My answer is always 0, right? So that's what the zero product property means. If I'm multiplying two things, in this case I have two binomials, 2x minus 1 and x plus 3. If I want my solution to be 0, one or both of those need to be 0. Does that make sense? Okay, so we need to determine which one is 0, or are they both 0? In order to do that, you just separate the factors and solve. So that's step 1. Oopsie, we don't want a highlighter. Okay, so we're going to do 2x minus 1. It's going to equal 0. That could possibly equal 0. And x plus 3 could possibly be equal to 0. Now we're going to solve like it's just a two-step equation. So here, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. That gives me 2x equals 1. Now what do I do? Very good, divide by 2. Okay, so here I get x equals 1/2. Okay, so in order for this binomial to be 0, x would have to equal 1/2. Let's see about over here. I'm going to solve for x, so I subtract 3 from both sides. That gives me x equals -3. So in order for this binomial to be a 0, x would have to be -3. So my solutions are x equals 1/2 and -3. Those are the solutions to that quadratic function. Okay, you guys do B now. Solve B for me. Okay, does someone have the answers here? Yep. Okay, so it should be 3/2, and it should be -3/2. And what's the other one? And 1/3. Okay. Any questions on how we got that? We're good? Okay. Okay, the next one, they're asking you to solve each equation by factoring. It's not in factored form. Okay, so we need to factor it before we can solve it. Since we're looking for the x-intercepts, we always want it to be equal to 0. Okay, so you need a quadratic equal to 0. This is already set equal to 0, so we're good. We can move on. Okay, the second step is just to factor it. Okay, so my factors are right here. I have x squared, positive 16x, and 64. Okay, and then what multiplies to x squared? Yep. X times x. And what multiplies to 64? Yep. 8 times 8. And then we check our answer. So 8 times x is 8x. And then x times 8 is 8x. Now if you remember, this is positive. That means these are the same sign. Okay, so if 8 plus 8, does that give me positive 16? Yes, okay. So this is positive, this 8 is positive. If this 8 is positive, this 8 is positive. So my factors are x plus 8 times x plus 8, and it equals 0. Yes. Very good. So now we're going to separate our factors and set them equal to 0. So we have x plus 8 has to equal 0. It matches, so you really don't need to write the second one if they match. If they don't match, then you definitely need it. But since they match, it's going to give you the same answer twice, right? So I subtract 8 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 8. I want you to take a moment right now to think about what this graph is going to look like. Okay? Since it is only one answer, picture in your mind what that graph would look like. Anyone got an explanation of what that graph is going to look like? Lily?
Would it be linear, or would it be just one solution?
It's one solution, correct. And what do I know about the graph if there's one solution?
That the minimum would be on
Very good. Okay, the minimum or the vertex would be on the x-axis. In this case, it is a minimum because the a value is positive. But if the a value is negative, it could also be a maximum point. But in this case, my parabola, the vertex is on the x-axis, and the vertex is your x-intercept, negative 8, 0. Okay. Any questions over that? Okay. On this one, you need to set this equal to 0, because this right now it's saying it's 64. It equals 64. Okay, we have to get rid of that 64. Okay, so how do I make 64 go away? Subtract it, okay? And if I subtract 64 from this side, I have to do the same thing on the other side. Now, is negative 64 like terms with any of my terms on this side? Nope. So you just stick them in order. Greatest degree first, so x squared goes first, then negative 12x, and then your smallest degree of negative 64. And then it equals 0. Any questions over that? Okay, now we're going to factor this. I want everyone to factor this one for me. Factor and solve from here. As x minus 16 and x plus 4. Then we separate our factors and solve. So x minus 16 equals 0, and x plus 4 equaling 0. When we solve, we'll get x equals 16 and x equals negative 4. Any questions over that? We're good? Okay, next page. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to graph by factoring. Okay, I did this problem last period and it was horrible, so we're going to cross out that one and I'm going to give you a different one. Our vertex ended up being some fun fractions, which is kind of hard to graph. Let's see. So let's try this one. So again, cross out the equation they gave you. That was really crazy. We ended up having like a decimal of 6.125, which is kind of rough to graph, just so you know. Okay, so we start by factoring. because it's asking us to factor by graphing, or graph by factoring, sorry. So let's factor this. We've got x squared minus 2x minus 8. Yep. Yes, but it's asking you to use factoring to graph the function. It's not asking you to solve, it's asking you to graph it by factoring. So we're going to show you how to do that. Okay, x times x gives me x squared. Okay, negative 8x is 4 and 2. 4 times x is 4x. X times 2 is 2x. Okay, they're opposite signs. Which one needs to be negative? Yep, the 4 to get the negative 2. And the 2 is positive. That makes this 4 negative, and that makes this 2 positive. Okay. So my factors are x plus 2 times x minus 4. And again, they equal 0. When we're solving, it's always equal to 0 because the y value is 0 on the x-axis. Okay, now we're going to solve that. So x plus 2 equals 0, and x minus 4 equals 0. I subtract the 2, and I get x equals negative 2. I add the 4, and I get x equals 4. Okay. So graph the x-intercepts now. So I go where x is negative 2, which is right here, and where y is 4. Those are my x-intercepts. Okay, we don't know where the vertex is, and that's really the point we really need, right? Okay, so in order to find the vertex, we need to find the middle, that axis of symmetry. Okay, and the axis of symmetry is the middle of my graph, right? So that's what we're going to do, is find the middle. So that's step 4. Find the axis of symmetry. By averaging the x-intercepts. Okay, we have to find the middle or average it. So negative 2 plus 4 divided by 2. And that's your axis of symmetry. Negative 2 plus 4 is 4. Not 4, is 2. Let's do better. 2 divided by 2 is what? 1. So your axis of symmetry is x equals 1. Now we have to find the vertex. We have the x value of the vertex. How do I find the y value of the vertex? Ready? Plug it in. Very good. Step 5. Plug in 1 for x and solve. Okay, I know we're taking up a ton of room. So it's f of 1 equals 1 squared minus 2 times 1 and then minus 8. So 1 squared is 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 minus 8. F of 1 is negative 9, which is not helpful. Vertex is 1 and negative 9. Because I don't have negative 9. So what I'm going to have to do is move my x-axis up here so I can graph negative 9. If you did it in pen, then you just have to extend your graph, unfortunately. So I'm going to graph my two x-intercepts. Again, and then I'm going to graph the vertex of 1, negative 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I can use my A value to give me more points. Up 1 over 1, up 3 over 1. And then that's up 5 over 1. So that will help me graph it a little bit more accurately. So that is my problem. Any questions over that? Okay. Let's see. Okay, we're going to use this one. We're just going to graph this. Okay, so number 14, graph that one for us. On the back, find that. Use the steps to look back and forth. Okay, most of us were able to factor this. X minus 5 and x minus 6, and it equals 0, not 6, x minus 1. And it equals 0. Then you guys were able to find the x-intercepts at x equals 5 and 1. Okay, so my x-intercepts are at 1 and at 5. Okay, from there you can find your your axis of symmetry by just finding the middle. 5 plus 1 divided by 2, which is 3. So my axis of symmetry is at 3. Then we plug 3 into our equation. F of 3 equals 3 squared minus 6 times 3 plus 5. And keep going. f of 3 equals 9 minus 18 plus 5. That gives me f of 3 equals negative 4. So that's my vertex. Vertex is at 3, negative 4. I can find more points by using my a value. The a value is 1, so up 1 over 1. Then up 3. Oopsie, I graphed too low, right? I graphed negative 5. That did not work out. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And then that is my parabola. Any questions over that? We're all good? Okay, going back to that other page. Okay, they're going to give you a graph and they want you to write it in factored form. Factored form looks like this. It's a times x minus something times x minus something. We need to know that these are my x-intercepts. So we want to identify our x-intercepts. Sorry, it's freaking out a little bit. So this is my x-intercept and this is my x-intercept. Okay, so we're going to plug those directly into it. It's at x equals 3 and 9. Then we need our a value. Okay, remember our patterned rate of change. That gives us your a value. It's a over 1, then 3a over 1, then 5a over 1, right? So we're going to look at this one, a over 1. So if I go over 1, how far up did I have to move before I hit? 1. So a equals 1. You always use that first step. I go over to the right one, and how far up did I have to move to find a? So in this case, a equals 1. Now you plug all those pieces in. So f of x equals, I have my a value as 1, times x. Since it's x minus, you have to change the sign. So the x-intercept is a positive 3. When I plug it in, it becomes a negative 3. It's just going in reverse. Like when I solve, remember I had to add the opposite? So when I plug it back in, I have to change the sign. I do the same thing for 9. That's it. So my equation, I don't really need the 1 there, would just be x minus 3, x minus 9. And it doesn't matter which order I put these in. If I switch the 9 and the 3, it'd be the same answer. Yes? It's always minus. It's opposite sign. So if you have a negative x-intercept, when you plug it in, it becomes a positive. Remember, those parentheses are always opposite signs. Still here in factored form as well. Okay. See that pattern. Any questions over that? We're good? Okay, on that last page, I'm going to have you guys, let's see. Do number 11 and 12 and 13. Okay, those are the ones I want you to do. If you need room, there's lots of space on there. Do 11, 12, and 13.